Yeah, and I hope I hope if the internet's all right. But at any rate, I mean, beyond this, Ryan, I just want to also get your thoughts on the state of the election itself. I think amongst people on the left, actually, there's almost just as there was like a delusional certainty that Trump could not be elected president in 2016. I think now there's actually way too much confidence, oddly, that he can't be beat. And I think the fact that he absolutely can, at least in my view, adds to some of the frankly the complexities of some of these calculations. Because even something, I too am sick of the sort of same arguments that are repeated every 4 years, like you got to vote for a terrible candidate because of who they'll appoint to some obscure government agency or whatever. I get it. That is problematic that's the dynamic. And at the same time, that is the dynamic. And, I just spent the morning, my first commentary segment talking about if we don't have a mass labor movement in this country, forget it. Now, a lot of that, thankfully, is not governed by policy. We're seeing the National Labor Relations Board matters a lot. So, anyway, Ryan, I mean, how do you see the election now?
Yeah, I think empirically that you're right, that people are deluded if they think that Trump can't lose this election. If Biden wins, or whoever the Democratic nominee wins all of the states that Hillary Clinton won, and then flips Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, then Democrats win the White House. Pennsylvania has been surging blue ever since 2016. Their elections in 2017, 18, and 19 were all heavily Democratic. They have a Democratic governor. Michigan flipped wildly blue in 2018 and now has a Democratic governor. Wisconsin, the same thing, huge Democratic wave in 2018, elected a Democratic governor, and now just recently elected a Supreme Court judge, Democratic Supreme Court judge in a heavily contested election that shouldn't have taken place and will probably end up killing people. But Democrats won that, and they did that basically on the back of anti-Trump sentiment, not pro-democratic sentiment. And so there's no obvious reason that Biden can't be a filler for that kind of sentiment. The same anti-Trump feelings will be there in November. In fact, they will be heavily intensified, particularly among Democrats, because Trump is in the process of needlessly killing tens of thousands of people. So I am one of the loudest voices that argues that you ought to inspire people with your politics, and that if you want to bring the disaffected in, you have to give them something to believe in. At the same time, if a politician is extraordinarily unpopular, he can be beaten with nothing. He could also lose, but there is a reason that Democrats have been able to win the White House occasionally. You have backlashes against Republican mismanagement, and people swing towards Democrats. But I also think strategically, it's ridiculous to so publicly claim that Democrats can't win the White House, because right. if they do, you look like a clown, and then you're marginalized. Like what if you're out there saying you can't win without us, therefore you after you lose, you need to come crawling to us so that we can build a coalition, and then they win, they would be reasonable in saying, well, I guess we didn't need you, did we? But in fact, just because some voices are out there saying that Biden can't win doesn't mean that the majority of Bernie supporters aren't going to be out there working against Trump in the election, whether it's getting out voters down ballot, working to elect particular senators or House members, or even some working at the presidential level. And a lot of that work that will be done, that will be instrumental to ousting Trump, will then be erased because people say, well, there were these loud pro-Bernie people who said that Biden could never win. Biden won. So I guess we can write you guys out of the conversation, and writing the left out of the conversation is the thing that the center absolutely loves to do. On the obscure agency point, I do think people should absorb one or two things about this. One is at the end of the Obama administration, his Department of Justice had consent decrees on top of police forces all over the country. These racist police forces that were, shooting and killing young black men, arresting them in extraordinarily disproportionate ways. And we're not just talking about Ferguson, but Baltimore, Chicago, in Arizona, around the country. And when you have a kind of theocratic, neo-fascist party come in, they get rid of all those consent decrees, and the Justice Department people who are dedicated to cracking down on racist police departments are all told to go home. A second thing is the utter unleashing of the CBP and ICE. The same dynamic that leads to the unleashing of the racist police departments leads to the unleashing of those forces on millions of immigrants. And now it's easy to say, well, the Obama administration was terrible on immigration, so why would Biden be any better? He has, even through the campaign, distanced himself from his own record during the Obama era, and has pledged to act utterly differently than Trump does on immigration. And the reason that he has done that, and the reason that you can expect him to be much better on policing, is because of immigrant rights movements and the movement for Black Lives. Those are movements that are much more effective at pressuring Democratic administrations than they are Republican administrations. In fact, Republican administrations love when those groups are protesting them, because then it agitates their racist white base and gets them back out to the polls. So, there are.
Can I also just add one thing, Ryan?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit more cynical, but it's also true. Even if you took the worst case scenario, that Joe Biden would not make many meaningful, that it's the equivalent of Guantanamo, that these obscene policies were put in place. There's children and people that are detained. There's a situation in Mexico that has been catastrophic and pushed by these Trump administration policies that affects asylum seekers from Central America, that essentially you still are not going to take the next steps in the program under a Democratic administration. So even when Democrats are just building off of and consolidating what Republicans have done, the drone program, ICE, and Homeland Security, a consolidation is a major problem. We can't undersell it. And again, I keep saying, I'm not, like, the left lost, and this is a big problem, and there's a lot that needs to happen. A consolidation is still different than a consolidation plus expansion. And I just want people to look at it, again, on this very tactical grounds. It's not, there isn't some great hope of like, yeah, Biden's going to put incredible people to NLRB and all these things are going to happen. The question is, to what extent do you have to fight uphill? And I think that is frankly, the grounded way of looking at it. And it actually does clarify the electoral calculation. It's just not that complicated. And it doesn't require a false positivity either.
Right. The idea of Stephen Miller having 4 more years to devise immigration policy. He is imaginative, if nothing else. And, he will continue to come up with ways to use federal power to destroy the lives of immigrants, legal, undocumented, you name it.
Absolutely. And the populism thing is clarified by, even when they make moves, all of these guys talk like country club Republicans when it comes to unions. So it shows the game. Ryan Grimm, thanks so much.
No, thank you.